Imagine a world without choices. Imagine you can't make your own decision. That wouldn't be a world for me. That wouldn't be a world for you. UIC.
Tell them we're gonna be stronger. Together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. Gonna be stronger together. Time we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. It is a natural right for every human being to be free. Free, so free. So the government is there to protect you and me. UIC objective is to liberate the citizens from colonial bondage, them regulation, them taxation. Rob Jamaica, we independent. Be stronger together we can make it right. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I. We're gonna be stronger together. Come, we all just unify. Our purpose is a better Jamaica for you and I.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. Welcome to our early birds. I see Howard Foster on. I see JMH. Welcome, Controversy. And we're expecting a few more persons to join because we know it's still early. We usually have a lot more persons on by now, but that's okay. We'll build up over time. But today, in this edition, we'll be talking about Jamaica's future with a UIC government as it relates to what you're experiencing now. So we'll be going over our manifesto, explaining what each of our 10-point plans are, and so forth. We do have some persons from the team today. We have Carlin Ramirez Acosta. I'm here as well, and Mr. Patterson is joining us. We do hope to have some of the persons from the team coming on, so we'll just get on with the program and hopefully they'll join as it progresses. Mr. Patterson?
I'm right here, Naika, and thank you for opening for us tonight. Good night, everyone, and welcome to another edition of UIC Liberty TV. It's my pleasure to be here because we're going to be talking about topics that are near and dear to my heart, particularly the core of our manifesto as a political movement. So I'm looking forward to that. Good night, Donnery. Good night, The Reasoning Corner. Good night, Sylvester. Good night, Kick Rocks. Good night, Kirk. Good night, JMH. Sorry for the early start. We had a bit of a mix-up with daylight saving time. You know, Jamaica, we don't change, but the rest of the world, or most of the world, changes. So we have a bit of a switch up tonight. But good to see you all here. The topic for tonight is the future of Jamaica. And for that, we're going to begin by looking at our manifesto. You might be familiar with the preamble of the manifesto, or you might not. This is what it looks like. It's a fairly short but impactful statement that I'm going to be kind of reading for you to kick things off a bit so that you get an appreciation for what does the UIC really stand for? What is it that we want to bring to Jamaica? You've heard us talk about good governance. You've heard us talk about individual sovereignty. You've heard us talk about protecting individual liberty and promoting personal responsibility. These are some of the many phrases that informs the UIC's philosophy and ideology, what guides us, our core values, and all of that kind of stuff. If you recall, you might have seen a document, something like this, where we go through the 10-point plan that we're going to implement for Jamaica. We also share on that document and in other reports or printing material that we have sent out, we talk about our vision. The vision of the UIC is to bring out the best in all its people, a Jamaica that brings out the best in all its people. Very simple statement, but a very powerful one. Can you imagine a Jamaica that brings out the best in all of its people? as opposed to what we have now, a Jamaica that brings out the worst in most of us. Ever since our people have been enslaved and driven by the colonial process, we have become more and more divided, more and more aggressive, more and more antisocial. I think it was a few nights ago you heard from our General Secretary, Carlene Ramirez Acosta, talking about building social capital. A key part of that is uniting ourselves, learning to work with each other instead of against each other, building a spirit of community. And so the UIC is going to achieve all of that through the system of governance that we're going to put in place. But let me again just share with you the preamble. I'll read it for you just to make sure I don't make any mistakes. I have it over here in my other screen. The preamble says, it begins with, as uniters, we seek to create one Jamaica, united, strong, and free. We will create a non-partisan constitutional republic of Jamaica that is not divided by class, color, community, or party. A true republic that protects the life, the liberty, and the property rights of all citizens equally, and where everyone may live, earn, and retire with dignity in a safe, clean, and orderly society. A real new Jamaica. Protecting the life, liberty, and property of every citizen equally is the essential precondition for a free, fair, and prosperous society. Without this protection, there can be no peace, only corruption, poverty, and crime. We will demolish the use of force and fraud from all human relationships, as it is only through voluntary, mutually beneficial exchange that we may enjoy true peace and prosperity in our homes, in our community, and country. Consequently, we'll defend the right of everyone to engage in any activity that is peaceful, honest, and welcome the diversity, creativity, and prosperity that true liberty, that true individual liberty or freedom brings. The society we seek to build is one where individuals are free to follow their dreams in their own ways, without interference from government or any authoritarian power, provided they do not initiate force or use fraud to infringe on the life, liberty, or property rights of others. The following are our basic principles and policies that flows from them. Our goal is nothing more and nothing less than a society where all are truly free to realize their full potential in a safe, clean, and orderly Jamaica. And it is to this end that we take the stands that we do on the issues. So now I'm going to share with you the statement of principles. But before I do that, you want to look at some key elements that we have mentioned in the preamble a while ago. In the preamble, we make it very clear that UIC wants to create one Jamaica. Now, there are two ways to create one Jamaica: by force or by respecting our individual rights and creating an environment for us to work together in that social capital harmonious way that our General Secretary spoke about. The UIC prefers that way, the way of respecting your individual liberty and promoting personal responsibility and creating an environment for us to work collectively and cooperatively with each other, not by force, but by the empowerment of a government that loves and cares for the people it was elected to serve. So the UIC is really focused on respecting you, respecting your rights, and creating an environment for you to self-actualize without force or fraud being the driver behind that. And so in this preamble, we noted we want to create one Jamaica, united, strong, and free. Each of those words are critical. United. We're no longer divided by party or color or anything like that. So We can all coexist with different religion, different ethnicities, different color. We can even be in different political parties, but the system is not geared towards pushing partisan politics and the division and distraction that creates. And I'm going to explain to you more how we will achieve that. It's also a system that is not just making us united, but also strong. Strong meaning we have the right kind of economic system, the right kind of healthcare system, the right kind of education system that's going to bring out the best in our people, physical health, mental health, the technical competencies and skills that we need to do well. And most importantly, the third element is to ensure that we're free. That's what Nanny fight for, Nanny and Paul Bogle and Sam Sharp and Marcus Garvey and, George William Gordon, they fought for freedom. And so anything that challenges or seeks to undermine our freedom as a people must be swiftly and aggressively opposed. So the UIC is that political movement that will aggressively protect your right to be a free human being. So we're not going to support things like a central bank digital currency that's going to allow government the power to take away your right to buy and sell. We're not going to support any idea of injecting our entire population with a drug because some people somewhere said that we all should get that injection. We're not going to have a system where government calls the shots, but rather a system where you call the shots and government protects your right to your life, your liberty, and your property within that framework. So a very different kind of government, a government that's truly of the people, for the people, and by the people, as opposed to a government that rules over the people. So having said that, I want to turn your attention now to our statement of principles. These principles guides everything the UIC does and will do in the future. It says, we the members of the United Independence Congress of Jamaica hereby challenge the moral authority of the omnipotent state to initiate force or use fraud against the citizens of Jamaica. And we defend the inherent natural born right of every individual to be free. We hold that all individuals have the right to exercise sole dominion over their own lives, bodies, and justly acquired properties, and thus have the right to live in whatever manner they choose, so long as they do not forcibly interfere with the equal right of others to live in whatever manner they choose. Governments throughout history have regularly operated on the opposite principle, that the state has the right to interfere with and dispose of the lives of individuals and the fruits of their labor. All political parties in Jamaica, except for the UIC, grant to government the right to regulate the lives of individuals and seize the fruits of their labor without their consent. We, on the contrary, deny the right of any government to do these things and hold that where government exists, they must not violate the rights of any individual, namely the right to life. Accordingly, we support the prohibition of the initiation of physical force against others, the right to liberty of speech and action. Accordingly, we oppose all attempts by the government to abridge the freedom of speech and press, as well as government censorship or in any form. And thirdly, the right to property. Accordingly, we oppose all government interference with private property, such as confiscation, nationalization, eminent domain, and support the prohibition of robbery, trespass, fraud, and misrepresentation. Since governments, when instituted, must not violate individual rights, we oppose all interference of government in the areas of voluntary and contractual relationships among individuals. People should not be forced to sacrifice their lives or property for the benefit of others. Charity must be voluntary, not forced for it to be charity. People should be left free by government to deal with one another as free traders who by law may not use force or fraud to get their way, and the resultant economic system, the only compatible with protection of individual rights, is the free market. Now that's a powerful statement, something that you're not used to. You're not used to hearing government talk like this because government likes to hide within the laws and in their constitution little get out of jail clauses where they're allowed to do things to citizens and get away with it. They can, for example, like the Jamaican government, they have for the last 80 years withheld the land from the Jamaican people. This land was stolen from your ancestors. All of it, all of Jamaica was stolen from the Jamaican people some 400 to 500 years under the colonial slave masters. They stole the land from the Jamaican people. And when they sort of left Jamaica in, let's say, 1962, and when they kind of gave up some of the governing of Jamaica in 1944, our local politicians, the one who claim that they are representing us, they have continued to hold on to those lands as if they now are the new slave masters and they get to decide who they're going to give some to. So for example, they can create little housing schemes and say, okay, we're going to give a few people some matches boxes, provided they had given us money in the NHT program. We'll only give 25% of them some, and then we're going to give some to our rich friends. You know, we're going to sell some to foreigners that want to own our beaches or want to own our hotels. And we can arrange and give some to some of our political friends, you know, and give them hundreds of acres. And maybe a big banker who helped fund our political campaign will give him a good deal and give him a big swat of land over there, so for whatever price. But the bottom line is they believe they have the right to control our lives, our liberty, and our property. Nothing to go so. And the UIC is going to correct all of that. We're going to turn over the land to the people of Jamaica to whom it rightfully belongs by making every Jamaican a property owner. But I'm getting ahead of myself. You're going to hear more about that in our 10-point plan. I just want to set the tone so you understand where we're coming from. The UIC is a rights-based movement focused on protecting your individual rights. At the moment, you might not take that to be very serious. You might think you're free, but you're not free. I'll give you an example. Right now, across the world, they're bringing laws into place where you won't even be able to raise chicken in your backyard. You won't be able to farm in your own land because you need permission from the government. Right now, in the laws of Jamaica, you can't even light a fire. You're allowed, you're doing it now, you know, because they're not cracking down on you yet. But in the future, when they put those laws into effect, they can stop you from doing just about anything. So they're busy passing those laws without your consent, without your involvement. You just vote at election time, those of you who bother to go out and vote, and they then say, yes, we have the authority to pass these laws. For example, which of them asked your permission to make Jamaica a country that is a signatory to the central banking system and the central banking digital currency and the NIDS program and all the other things that they're dumping on us? Which of you voted to give them permission to give away your central bank to private banking cartels and therefore strip your government of the right to set monetary policy? Did you vote for that? No, you didn't. What you voted for was some exciting little campaign. They tell you a few tricky things and you said, yay! And a few of us went out and voted. In fact, only 37% of us went out and voted. The other 63% couldn't be bothered. Why? Because it's a waste of time. Whether you vote one or the other, it's the same outcome. So the majority of us know that it's not working, but we don't know what to do. So the UIC is giving us something to do. The UIC is here to say, let's take control of our country. Let's demand our liberty. Let's ensure we have good governance. And let's make sure nobody outside of Jamaica will get for control Jamaica and turn us into the fools that they've been turning us into. It's time for us to take back control of our bank, take control of our education, take control of our healthcare, and by God, take control of our land. And the UIC is here to make that happen. And that begins with you understanding the value of freedom, the purpose of liberty, the sacredness of your sovereignty, to get on board with protecting your fundamental rights so that all the other things that government can do and should do are done to your benefit. So that's the preamble. Now we're going to get into some of the points that comes into the manifesto, which are not like typical manifestos. This is a manifesto for you. And we're going to begin with Naika walking us through each of those manifesto items. I will take most of them. I know Carlene is going to take at least one, and we might have Winston and others coming on later on if they can. So let's begin, Ms. Williams. What is the first one that you want us to look at?
Is a youth employment program to ensure every high school graduate who does not go on to college has a job, learns valuable skills, and are kept out of gangs. Now, as a person who was almost caught in this trap, I would like a better explanation on what it's about, really.
Okay, sure. Now, before we go into that, which is a 10-point plan, I want us to go through the items on the manifesto at the top side, which is one by one. So point number one looks at the, what is it called here? Point number one, personal liberty. So can you read that for us? And then we're going to talk about it a little bit, if you can.
Okay, sure. Okay, so personal liberty. Individuals are inherently free to make choices for themselves and must accept responsibility for the consequences of the choices they make. Our support of an individual's right to make choices in life does not mean that we necessarily approve or disapprove of those choices. No individual, group, or government may rightly initiate force against any other individual, group, or government. Uniters reject the notion that groups have inherent rights. We support the rights of the small minority, the individual.
Thank you very much for that, Naika. Now, this is a very simple but powerful statement that I want us to look at. I'm going to put it on screen here for you. So it says personal liberty. How important is personal liberty to you? Why is that so important? If you put this in front of the average Jamaican, they'll quickly brush it aside because what they want to hear about is bread and butter issues. They want to hear, you can give me some money for build my house, or give me a goat, or give me some chicken, or give me some blocks or some cement. They don't really care much about personal liberty. So why is the UIC wasting time and energy talking about something that many Jamaicans don't really care about? Why are we wasting precious time talking about this subject matter? Well, we're wasting time talking about this subject matter because without it, none of the other matters. None of the other things matter. If you do not have your personal liberty protected, nothing else matters. So let's say you have a politician who come and say to you, like they did during the what do you call it again? During that pandemic. I heard one minister of government saying that you must take the joke and you can get water. Now, that was an amazing confession of the type of government that they're overseeing. So they're saying that they're not going to ensure that the citizens have running water coming to their community unless those citizens give up their bodily autonomy and go and line up and take an injection against their will, even if they are not comfortable with the idea of taking it. So they were willing to sacrifice your right to having running water if you're willing to give up your right to make choice about your own bodily autonomy, what goes into your body. Yeah. And so the UIC wants to make it clear that our first priority is to protect your individual right. Individuals are inherently free to make choices for themselves and must accept the responsibility for the consequences of the choices they make. That's a basic premise of human life that we should never allow to slip away from us on both sides. There are two sides in them. One side is the right to choose, and the other side is the responsibility to accept responsibility for the consequences or the benefits. Very, very important. Politicians don't talk about this because they like to give you the idea, like Andrew did back in the early part of his election, where he promised you prosperity without outlining to you what your responsibility is to create that prosperity. He just wanted to plant in your mind the simplistic idea, elect me and I am going to make you prosper. No, elect the UIC and we're going to create an environment whereby by the sweat of your brow, you will eat bread. By your own creativity and ingenuity and productivity, you will grow, because we're going to create a safe environment for you by doing the job of government, safety. We're going to create a clean environment for you. We're going to create a very orderly environment for you with the kind of infrastructure you need to be able to be productive. And that's how you're going to achieve prosperity. So our personal liberty stance is grounded in the practicality of good governance, whereby you, the citizen, have certain core responsibility which you cannot escape, and the government has certain core responsibility which it cannot abdicate. In Jamaica, our government abdicates its responsibility and then fines and charge and prosecute and pressure you to live up to whatever responsibility they place upon you. So they say, for example, your car must be fit. You must have fit car. Your car must be fit and proper. Your car must be fit and proper, they say. But the government doesn't have to make sure that the road is fit and proper. So if you crash, or if your vehicle, like what happened to me the other day and a few times before, your tire blow out because the government failed to properly fix the road. Your tire blow out, you lose a wheel, you have to buy a new one. Maybe you damage your rim, you have to replace the rim. Maybe your axle is broken or twisted or bent, you have to replace that. It takes time, you have to go to the shop and take time away from work, from earning, to go to a shop and get it done, to go buy a tire, get it replaced. All of that you have to do. You have to pay all of that on top of the tax you paid, the fitness you bought. You went to the fitness place and you paid the money, you get your fitness certificate, you get your license, you get your permits, everything you need to get. You paid for all of that, and you paid your taxes, and you must drive properly on the road. And on top of that, now you must pay for any damage caused by the government. They don't get charged by you. You don't get to ticket the government for causing you to have damages to your vehicle. But they get to ticket you if you do not follow through on whatever rule they put on you. The UIC says no. You have responsibilities as a citizen, and your government must also be held accountable, not merely by a voting at the end of 4 to 5 years, because that's not enough. That's why they have us between these two parties. It doesn't matter. They say, okay, favorite time now, and it just keeps going like this. So you just do that and they just in and out, in and out, in and out. But you still losing. And that is why more and more of us are no longer voting, because it doesn't matter. The voting is not enough. You need good governance now. You need a system that actually works. And so that's why that number one principle is very, very important, personal responsibility. Ms. Williams, can you share with us the next one on the list?
Sure. Point 2 speaks to self-ownership. Individuals own their bodies and have rights over them. Pause. Let me start over. Individuals own their bodies and have rights over them than other individuals, groups, and governments may not violate. Individuals have the freedom and responsibility to decide what they knowingly and voluntarily consume. and what risk they accept their own health, finances, safety, or life.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask Carlene to take that one. Carlene, can you take that one for us?
Wonderful. Pleasant afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for being here and joining us on another one of our UIC Liberty TV Live. Thank you, Naika. Thank you, Mr. Patterson. All right, so self-ownership. Why are people entitled to do all the things like acquiring property and entering into contracts? Why do you think that is so? Because that is the rule of individual autonomy, i.e., the rules of individual self-rule. So the basic principle here is someone has to own. The basic principle here is if someone has to own your own body, who is that person going to be? So that, I'm just pausing for a moment so you can think about it. So if someone has to own your body, who do you think that person is supposed to be, right? If someone is going to own your body, that person must be no other person than yourself. Because if someone else owns your body, that means you are basically a slave.
Excellent point. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So definitely, Mr. Patterson. So just think about it for a moment. If you do not own your body and you allow someone else, whether it be an organization or an entity or just another person, to have sole dominion over your own body, then that means you are a slave. So it either means that nobody owns anybody person, at which point the entire system breaks down, or it means that everybody has a claim over everybody else's talent, at which point nobody can coordinate their activities. Or it means that some people are more equal than others, which means that they in turn can make others into their chattel, into their chattel slave. So if you understand the point that I'm trying to make here, right? So the rule of individual autonomy essentially creates equal and independent spheres of influence and allow the rest of the system to function. So the rule of individual autonomy is self-ownership. Each person own their own body. Mr. Patterson?
Oh yes, thank you very much, Carlene.
Right.
I am particularly fond of the concept of self-ownership. History has told us that normally the powers that be don't like that idea. They like the idea of somebody owning somebody. So if you go back in history, you'll notice you had a time which was called the feudal era. This is where you had some landowners who owned the land, and then the people could only kind of rest on the land and farm the land and have to give the bulk of what they produce to the landowner, and then they get a little bit, just enough to survive, never enough to become anything in themselves, just enough, which is the way Jamaica's economy works. It works in a way that keeps the majority just on the edge of making enough to come back to work the next day, but not enough to becoming anything substantive. And so self-ownership goes at the heart of liberty and freedom, that you own you. Nobody owns you. Nobody owns your thoughts. Nobody owns your physical body. Nobody owns the product of your efforts. Unfortunately, though, the way the economy is designed, it's as if you don't own you. And the UIC wants to make sure you fully own yourself. The concept of self-ownership, the right to your life, the right to your liberty, which means your time to do whatever you want with your time and your talent, and the right to property, to own property. So you can own something. You can't own anybody else, but you can own things that you produce or that you have been given by way of a gift, if it was legally or lawfully obtained or justly obtained, and so on and so forth. So thank you very much, Ms. Ramirez Acosta. Did you have any other thoughts on the subject before you go?
Yes, because there's actually some type of benefit, you know, to self ownership, right? So, self ownership is a concept that pertains to the idea that individuals have the right to control their own lives and bodies, right? So, self ownership is a fundamental principle of individual liberty, and it asserts that every individual has the right to control their own life and body, and that no one has the right to impose their will on them. Right, so there's a key component of human, it is like a key component of human dignity. It recognizes that every person is unique and valuable individual, and that they have the right to make their own decisions about their life and their body.
Absolutely. Somebody here is saying, Antonio Barrett, he says, Mr. Patterson, question for you. At present, the British Crown owns Jamaicans via birth certificates. How do you change that? Antonio, I am not aware of the British Crown owning Jamaicans via birth certificates. What I'm aware of is that our government and the system of governance that they have embraced does not recognize recognize our individual sovereignty. And by extension, the laws and economic model that we have in place denies us the freedom that we need to have to be able to achieve our full potential. So that I'm aware of, and that's what we're fighting against. We want to end that system permanently. Yes. Anything else, Miss Acosta?
No, that kind of sums it up nicely to say that, you know, it's really important that you understand yourself, and that you do not allow any government entity, no government or any other individual, to own the rights over your body. But I must tell you, though, you know, there was a story that I came across some time ago, and this story is about a man who he went on a flight with his dad, and they ended up that the plane crashed, and his dad died, and he lost a leg. So while at the hospital, he asked the surgeon if he could get back that leg to, you know, keepsake. And he had that leg. He went home, and he kind of put some stuff on it to kind of keep it, and he just have it there in his home. And then he fall on hard times, and the hard times that he fell on, he lost his home and all his contents and everything, and he had totally forgotten about the leg that he had in this little what you would call it, one of those
Preservative.
grill thing,
Preservative.
preserve, yeah, like a grill
Yeah.
thing, right? And he had his stuff in storage. His stuff was put in storage, and then this gentleman went and bought some stuff that had belonged to him, you know, and he ended up finding the leg in one of the containers that he got from storage. So he thought it was some murder or something, you know, that was committed. So he ended up calling the police. So he called the police about the leg. The police came, they did some investigation. They found out that the contents belongs to this gentleman, and they called him in and they talked to him, and he ended up, you know, they ended up finding out that there wasn't really any murder, anybody, no homicide, no one got hurt. It was just that this man had his leg stored in his home. So it went on that he reached out now to the gentleman to say, can I please have back my leg? And the man basically told him that, no, I bought this stuff, no, I own the leg. You know, so it ended up in court. It ended up in court, and he actually got back the leg. But this goes to show that the court system made a ruling to say that the leg belongs to him. He holds his body, so therefore, you know. So I just remember that story.
Wow. So, well, I'm glad he got back his leg.
He got back his leg.
Let's just make sure we don't lose our heads.
Definitely.
So, thank you again, Madam Ramirez Acosta, for joining us. I know you have to run.
Oh, yes.
But thanks for your contribution. Have a good night.
Anytime. Welcome. Take care, everyone. Good night.
All right. So I see we have Chase in the house. I saw Winston earlier on. I don't know if Winston is still there. Is he still there? No, I don't see him.
No, it's not.
All right. Well, welcome and good night.
Very good night. Thank you for having me, Sir Patterson. Good night, Jamaica and all uniters. All right. I'm about to leave work, so I decided to hop on before I step out.
Okay, wonderful. Now, since you have to run, can you? I'm getting a feedback.
Oh, but you're hearing some echo?
Yeah. So what I'm going to ask you to do is go ahead and share with us whatever you had in mind based on from the manifesto. I'll give you the floor since you have to run. So go ahead.
All right. So I was thinking about the 10-point plan. One thing that stands out for me is the fact that any student leaving high school will be able to go into apprenticeship if they're not in a job or in tertiary training. Now, I want to say that I am an online English tutor. I teach students from Japan and South Korea and China how to speak English. Now, what I found that was very interesting with Japan and South Korea is that as soon as students leave school, they know exactly what they're going to do. They know what they're going to do before they leave school. There's no time to idle or wonder what next, and contributes to the order in their society. Now, I like the fact that through the UIC, the 10-point plan, and it's also a feature of the education plan LEAP, students who are not in a job or who are not pursuing training will be placed in apprenticeship where they'll be learning skills and earning at the same time. Now, this will contribute to our social development and also ensure that we don't have ready recruits for gangs. So this sets us on a place for development in Jamaica. So I love that aspect of our 10-point plan. Well, I love many aspects. That's the first one I chose.
All right.
All right.
Mute your mic for me because I get feedback when it's open. Okay, let me do it. All right, I think it's working now. Miss Williams, did I get that right? Okay, you're muted too. So.
You did.
All right. So Chase made a very good point there a while ago about our 10-point plan and how it literally, prepares our people to be effective citizens. One of the problems we have in Jamaica is that the school system, as we have it now, doesn't really prepare us to succeed as individuals. It's very focused on passing exams. It's very focused on learning by rote. So you learn by memory. So you're not really mastering the skills of reasoning and analytical thinking and so on, even though I know there's some element of that in the system. Worse than ever, though, the education system we have right now fails up more than 70% of our students every year. You can't have a school system, you can't have an economy, you can't have a society where every year the graduating batch coming out of your school, 70% or more of them fail to have the basic core competences to be effective citizens. That is a very disastrous future for Jamaica. And that's why the UIC has come up with the LEAP program, the Learning Enrichment Advanced Program, whereby we shift the focus away from learning by rote and away from merely passing exams to a competency-based system that builds core competencies across all the elements necessary for effective human development. So one of the core program begins with dealing with three things: understanding self, understanding human behavior or how to build quality relationships, and understanding money and economics. so that you're not fooled by politicians or unscrupulous business people. When a child understands those three elements, understanding themselves, mind, body, and personality, how to form a quality character, and when they understand human behavior and how to build good relationships, family relationships, business relationships, friend relationships, how to deal with conflicts and so on. And when they have mastered money, understanding the science of money, understanding monetary system, understanding monetary theories, economics the way you need to, how to manage money. When you understand those three things, you are ready for life. I mean, you can be a great father and mother, you can be a great friend and business partner, and you can manage your finances in a way that allows you to be an effective contributor to society. Just imagine if all of us, when we decided to start a business, a side business or a main business, you had the tools, you understood money well enough, you understand people. If you understand people, you understand markets. Markets are driven by human behavior, right? So people make decisions based on what is common to all of us. All of us were born as babies. We had to be given milk or breast by our mothers. We had to be changed, we had to learn to creep, then we had to learn to walk and then run, and we had to learn to read and write. All of these things, including then becoming ready for the job market, all of these, you can actually predict most of them, right? Most of what's going to happen. And if you have a good understanding of human behavior, you will understand markets and therefore marketing and advertising. You'll understand, if you understand money, you'll know how to forecast and plan. You'll understand future value, present value, taxation, how government affects the economy, how the private sector works, how exchange rates impact transactions, all of that. And if you have those skills, many of you here on this program right now, if you had the kind of education that the UIC plans to bring to Jamaica, you would, I can assure you, be in a much better position right now as an individual. If you had that early education from, preschool to, primary school to secondary school and beyond, if you had this core set of education, you would be in a very powerful position. I see Sir Winston Wright in the waiting room. Welcome, Mr. Wright. How are you doing, sir?
Good evening, Mr. President. Brother Neil, good evening. Sister Naika, good evening. Good evening to Uniters watching online.
Excellent. So we're talking about the UIC's manifesto. We're going through it a bit orderly and disorderly. So, we had Miss Acosta, the GenSec, who has just taken over from Mr. Neil, who was the GenSec until recently when we had our elections on Sunday. But she was talking about, self-ownership, which dovetailed off personal liberty. And I kind of gave an overarching view of, what we're doing. But I know Mr. Neil has to leave us shortly. So before you go, Mr. Neil, do you have any, parting thoughts? You are our Shadow Minister for Education and Human Resources. You are former General Secretary. You have helped to build this movement. What do you want to say to us before you have to go? Because I know you have to run.
Are you hearing me?
I can hear you now, yes.
All right.
Hear you now. Yes, go ahead.
All right. I want to say to all Jamaicans, all persons who are interested in the development of to look at UIC not just as a party, because we had to register as a party to challenge for government seat, to field our members. But we are primarily a platform for all Jamaicans to come on board and seize ownership of our country from those who would ruin it. For decades now, almost 80 years, we have been under that the United Kingdom has left for us to mash up the country. They gave us a sort of independence to trick us and gave us these two political parties that are colonial, really. And they come with the fun and the handouts and the vibes because they know that we as a people, we love the vibes. But over the years, they have ruined our country. And now we have a movement, a platform that we can own that is non-partisan in nature to develop the country. So if you want good for Jamaica, get on board and let us work together. Notice I did not say vote for me and I will do so and so for you, Mr. Patterson, and they will do so and so for you. We will be going through the plans and the policies that are part of the UIC through the manifesto. And you now have a chance to get on board to bring all of this to fruition. So let us work together and build back Jamaica. Stronger together, one Jamaica. All right, everyone, I have to run away now. And
Thank you so much.
I'll see you on the next one.
Okay, that was Chase Neal, the former General Secretary of the UIC, Shadow Minister for Education and Human Resources. So we're going to continue on now with our discourse on the manifesto. But before we jump back to the order of business, Mr. Wright, what was your topic? What area of the manifesto did you want to talk about?
Well, I'll be honest with you that I'm here at work, super busy, so I wasn't following the conversation. I decided to pop online because I was here and not driving as I usually am. So feel free to throw one at me.
No worries. Well, let's go then back to Naika, and she will give us the third element in the manifesto, and we can talk about that. So go ahead, Naika. Can you read for us the third element in the manifesto?
Sure. The third point is expression and communication. We support full freedom of expression and oppose government censorship, regulation, or control of communications, media, and technology. We favor the freedom to engage in or abstain from any religious activities that do not violate the rights of others. We oppose government actions which either aid or attack any religion.
All right, wonderful. So the expression and communication is another key element of our freedom. Freedom of expression, you might recall during and even now, but particularly during the what do you call that thing that they have, that I hate to use the word, that so-called pandemic that they had, every effort was made to suppress anyone who had anything to say that was contrary to the narrative that they wanted to push. Mr. Wright, what are your thoughts on protecting freedom, full freedom of expression, and the UIC stance in the fact that we oppose government censorship, regulation, or control of communications, media, and technology, and the fact that we favor freedom freedom to engage in or to abstain from any religious activities that do not violate the rights of others, and the fact that we oppose government actions which either aid or attack any religion. And if you notice, we lump in religion and communication because there's a history in the past of one of two things: either government being used to oppress a given religion or a given religious sect. You remember what they did with Rastafarians? So, they didn't like Rastafarians, and you had prime ministers and political parties and government which went out of their way to attack and suppress Jamaicans who shared a different view from what they considered was acceptable. And there's also the other side, where government aids religion. So you have seen in the Dark Ages where the church controlled pretty much the government of the then known European world, and that was a disaster. Millions were killed, burned at the stake, because they didn't comply with one religion thing or the other. And on top of all of that, we've seen across the history of mankind an attempt to suppress free speech when it does not suit the narrative of the day. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, you see, I like going back in history, which you did. And recently was the anniversary of what is referred to as the Iron Shore incursion, where one of our prime minister, who there, as a matter of fact, there's an attempt to name a school after him right now, which I believe is a shameful thing, after he instructed and systematically had our brothers who identified as Rastafarian, a Pan-Africanist identity, a Black identity, set upon by state security forces, state actors, brutalized, many seriously injured, and many killed. Now, my late father being a Rastaman, this cuts very close to me, because he would have been someone who would have faced this kind of segregation, this kind of victimization, if he wasn't a very strong person. So I believe that the UIC is beyond brave to pledge to work for the Jamaican people in creating a truly open expression and communication, particularly around religion and the right of an individual to identify with any particular group. Now, as it pertains to the state, removing the state from the equation is really what people power is about. And the UIC is about creating and empowering the people. The state is usually lobbied, in this case, lobbied heavily by private sector interests. And those private sector interests are usually aligned in one way or other with a different group. So, for example, you have theologically run states, and those states would literally outlaw other religions at the preference of the religion that identifies as the state religion. Now, imagine if you live in such a country and you have to choose to either hide your religious identity or be persecuted or forced to practice the accepted state religion. That is something that is unheard of in our world, but at the same time, quietly practiced. For our state, for example, identifies as Christian, but at the same time, I have my Muslim brothers around. I have my revivalist brothers around who identify with the African movement. I have my Rastafarian brothers around who identify with the Rastafarian movement and other Pan-Africanist movement. And those Christian organizations enjoy the protection of the state, again, because our state identifies as Christian. Now, a UIC government would not give preference to any one group, any one religious group. And as a matter of fact, that lack of preference extends to all aspects of our lives. But right now, we're talking about religion. So when our Rastafarian brothers and our Muslim brothers can openly communicate, commune, gather, and practice their religion with each other without fear of state persecution, that is fine. It will also give individuals who choose not to associate the right to say, I respect you, my brother, for identifying as such, but I will practice my religion over here. And that respect for each other's point of view is what the UIC is all about. So we advocate a very responsible way of handling the country's affair. Now people will say, oh, how are you going to do this? And it's pretty simple. Personal responsibility and education.
Yeah, I have not suffered, but I've actually found myself many times challenged by members even within the UIC, because they're concerned that the UIC is not in their view, they want the UIC to be religiously inspired. So they want us to show outward expression of supporting, say, Christianity. So you'll have members who come in and they're like, we need to put God first. And for them, putting God first means we need to do things in the way that they're used to religiously. And normally that's from a Christian perspective. So for example, at our functions, we don't have somebody getting up and kind of forcing everybody to pray by virtue of saying, let us pray. And then we have all these show of religiosity and that we are committed to God and to Christ and so on. And then that will make those persons feel comfortable. And we say, no. When we meet, we're going to respect all religions. So if you're going to give the Christian person the podium to advocate his Christian ideals, then you would have to give the podium to the Rastafarian to do the same, and to the Muslim to do the same, and to some other religion, maybe Hindu or whoever. Now, once you start to do that, give preference to anyone in your assembly, what you have done now is to create division. And the UIC is united around the principles of liberty, justice, and good governance. We're not here to advocate any particular religion, but I might be a Christian, the next member might be a Muslim, the next member might be a Hindu, the next person might be an atheist, whatever. That doesn't matter, because we're all united around the idea of protecting our religious liberty, or non-religious liberty, meaning I may not be religious, but my right to not be religious is protected. Your right to be religious is protected. His right to be a different religion from yours is protected. So if all of us have our rights protected, then we can enjoy life. We can enjoy the liberty and the freedom to worship as we choose, the God that we choose, and not be forced or coerced or made uncomfortable because the state or the movement gives preference to one or the other. And that's something which has defined the UIC. It's a part of our commitment to freedom of expression as well. You must be free to share your ideas, to share your religion with those who want to hear you. So while you have the freedom to share, you don't have the freedom to force, and nobody has the responsibility to listen. So that freedom of expression goes both ways, the freedom to share and the freedom not to listen. What are your thoughts on that?
That is pretty straightforward. Now, if you find yourself in a situation, for example, a Rastafarian brother finds himself in a situation where he's invited to participate in an event that is overtly Christian, he's going to be very uncomfortable, and he's going to be even fearful of it. Now, a UIC function that allows each one to express their individual belief instead of forcing it openly on the general gathering is one that is more welcoming. And that is why such a diverse set of persons support the UIC principles and support the UIC in general, because we make the movement comfortable for all to participate. I can mention my very good friend, Brother Roman, who is very Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And like many others, he's open about his faith, and he's not uncomfortable being in a UIC function, even though he's on a function with our Rastafarian brother, because neither of them is forced to participate in a ritual that they're not comfortable participating in, that is not part of their religious belief or their religious sphere.
Mm-hmm.
So the movement is overwhelmingly welcoming to all, and that is the beauty of the UIC. That is why
All are welcome. All are welcome. Ms. Williams, do you have any thoughts you want to share on the matter? We're not hearing you. You're muted. Let me fix it for you. Whoops, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Not much, but everything was pretty much covered. Freedom of speech it's actually something that how would I say this now? Like all right, let's just compare it to, like you said, you hate that word about the pandemic and so forth. Let's just compare what we're seeing now to what happened during that time. There were a lot of Jamaicans, if you should go on social media, you see a lot of persons hitting out against it, saying, why it is happening, and they were being somewhat disrespectful rather to the prime minister, and the majority of those persons were locked up for it, as if they don't have a right to really say what they think. You cannot blame a person for feeling how they feel. How I feel is just how I feel. If you're uncomfortable with it, that's just how you feel. At the end of the day, you have a right to feel that way. So this is something that we really need to instill in Jamaica today, because a lot of persons don't have the freedom to express what they want to.
You make a good point, Miss Williams, and this is important because one of the things that is going to happen, I can predict it right here, right now. In a very short time, you will not be able to speak freely on social media anymore. It's already being curtailed, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse, where the only thing you can say on these platforms are things which are authorized by the public. When somebody has to authorize what you can say, then you have lost your freedom of expression. And so the plan which is coming down the pipeline, the legislations, the laws which either party, whether it's the green or the orange party, anyone that's elected, they're there to carry out the wishes of the Colonial Masters. And they are busy preparing to pass more draconian laws to take away your freedom of speech. And they're going to use the idea that they're protecting us. They want to protect us from misinformation. They want to protect us from persons saying things that could be disastrous, that could be bad for society and bad for you. And so they're going to indeed pass censorship laws to take away your freedom. But the real reason behind it is so that when they are trying to enforce certain things, like they tried the other day with the injection, which they're still pushing, they want to make sure that there's no counter narrative. So they can lock off anybody who is going to tell you something counter to their narrative. Now, their narrative may be good or it may be bad. We don't know. But the fact that they don't want you to hear anybody else's narratives immediately, in my mind, make their narrative bad. If you want to tell me that you have a beautiful miracle cure that's going to help me, that's great. But if you're afraid of me hearing from somebody else telling me why your miracle cure may not be good, and that they have an alternative miracle cure, then if you don't want me to hear that, I should have no faith and no confidence in your cure or in you. And so the UIC recognizes these things, want to make sure that we enshrine in law unapologetically your right to freedom of expression, which means you will then be free to hear from all the different viewpoints. Let us have a democracy of ideas. Let us allow different views and ideas to contend. Let us allow conspiracy theories to be advanced, because the truth is, many conspiracy theories in recent times have proven to be very well-founded theories. A theory is simply an idea about something. Nothing is wrong with having ideas, whether it's a conspiracy theory or a scientific theory or an economic theory. It doesn't matter. Let us hear all the theories and allow us our individual right to choose which theory we want to believe. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Wright?
I love the whole theory of ideas. Now, if you don't have theories being expounded and tested, then we don't have thinkers and philosophers. Our minds are weak. And if someone purports something, if someone says something that isn't true, the aim shouldn't be to silence that person, but rather to disprove what has been put out there by that person. Now, if you're busy doing wrong, planning wrong, that is the only reason you'd want to silence opposition. That would be the only reason, because you don't have the time to counter that argument that has been put out there. Now, if you're doing right, you also would allow that theory to go out there and your action to disprove it. We are finding ourselves in a time where the emphasis is on silencing the masses. To take us back to a time where communication wasn't so instantaneous, when communication wasn't so ready, so ideas were easier to be killed. For example, the idea of black pride, black power. It was stifled by the systematic execution or termination of various community leaders, both in the Caribbean and the rest of the world.
And the control of the media.
Including our motherland, including Africa. Right? And they were able to advance other theories of white supremacy, theories of religion that has kept us in a loop.
In the dark.
Yes.
Yes.
Now we need to open up our minds to alternative that teaches us about the strength of Africa, about the strength of black people, that we were inventors, that we were the first to invent indoor plumbing, that we had the largest library in the world before the European world, quote unquote, had that knowledge. We were practicing medicine. We were masters of medicine when the Europeans were still in the Dark Ages. And they in turn came to us to learn medicine. So there's a lot out there that we could go on.
The bottom line is, as long as they can keep us from communicating, they can control us. They're afraid of losing control. And they're losing control very fast because people, for example, there's stuff that I used to know about money that nobody else knew. Today, many people now know it. For example, for years prior to the internet becoming what it is, I've been explaining to people things like how the monetary system works, how inflation works, how it's a trick, how it's a Ponzi scheme, how it's a scam. And now I don't have to explain it anymore. There's so many videos online now that people can watch that even does a better job than me of, putting it to animations and all kind of stuff. And I love it. I love the freedom. I love the power that's giving to people. Now, the two major parties we have in Jamaica, they are scared to death of this freedom. They don't want the Jamaican people to become educated. They want to keep us in that little box that they have held our parents and grandparents in, that they have been able to keep control of our economy and be able to steal from us. And that is why they've also made sure our education system is as weak as it is, because they do not want solid people that can really understand, analyze, and push back. And they also love it that many of those, the brightest among us, they love that we migrate. And that's why when we migrate, they kind of block us out of the electoral process. So those who leave the country, who go and get exposed in some ways, those who are normally more informed, or intelligent, if you will, they want those people to stay out of Jamaica, come for a visit, send back some money, but don't get involved in the politics. And that's why the UIC says, no, we're going to give the diaspora the right to vote. When you give the diaspora the right to vote, I know some people won't like it. They'll have all kind of things to say, but then they'll live here and all kind of foolishness. No, if you give your citizens, Jamaicans, wherever they live in the world, the right to vote, you're diluting the power of the politician to control the masses. They keep us hungry here so that they can control us. When you can't buy the diaspora, when you can't buy the 4 million Jamaicans abroad, and they can contribute, they can be a part of the dialogue about how you are running this country. I'm not afraid of that. If I am the president of Jamaica with the diaspora being able to vote, I would not be afraid, because I know that the policies of the UIC, that the plans of the UIC, that the management of the UIC can stand up to scrutiny. We will be able to stand up to the scrutiny of bright, intelligent, well-informed, financially stable Jamaicans around the world. I'm not afraid of that. What I want, though, is this opening up to cause more Jamaicans now to zero in on their country and start to not only send remittance home, but feel comfortable and confident now to truly invest in Jamaica. To not only build their homes here, but to build their businesses here, to build schools here, to build hospitals here, to build all kinds of different industries here, and cause the brain drain to reverse. So our policy is not just willy-nilly. It is about reuniting Jamaicans across the vast oceans, those in Germany, those in China, those in Japan, those in Cayman, those in the US and England and Canada, Netherlands, wherever you are, the UIC wants you to have a full vested interest in Jamaica by giving you the right to vote, the right to return with all of your assets free of duty. Yeah, you can come back from wherever you are duty free because this is your country. You must be able to bring back with you whatever you have had, you have built or that you have bought or purchased over there. Come back with it and use it to build up Jamaica. Naika, what are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree with you, because at the end of
Okay.
Sorry, let me Guard, could you wait a second, please? Go ahead, Naika.
now, I was going to say, at the end of the day, if they're going to be sending their hard-earned funds here, I think they should have a say in not what happens to the funds, but not how it's been used either. But if they're going to send their funds here, I think they should have a say in the country itself. They were born Jamaicans. They just left because there weren't opportunities here for them to really elevate themselves, right? So if they're going to send their funds here and they want better for Jamaica, they should have a right or a say in the government that, controls what happens.
Absolutely.
Here's a little bit. Over the past, say, 4 or 5 years, there's been a lot of stories of noted professionals, let's call it that, noted professionals who have swindled diasporans out of their hard-earned money in an attempt by said diasporans to acquire land and return to Jamaica. It creates a fear factor for our friends and our brothers in the diaspora and pushes them away. Now, this fear factor isn't addressed by anyone except UIC. Meaning the UIC has put forward a plan in totality that would address these issues when we talk about force and fraud, right? Or the abolition thereof. If you look at the trend right now, there is and I'm not saying that it's a deliberate attempt, but the net effect of the crime, the fraud, and the violence is to push diasporans away. And the political establishment is comfortable with that because they realize that the engineer that used to work in the Americas for 15 years will recognize that the road maintenance and infrastructure maintenance program that they have is unsustainable and geared towards political corruption and kickbacks, and therefore raise questions. And because Jamaicans have, and forgive the expression, a big man complex, he will be able to hold court under the community tree and convince the community members that that member of parliament can do better and should do better, that that councillor can do better and should do better. And the importation of that idea, the creation of that thing that, they should be accountable, that idea will propagate, and they don't want that. That is why they have an education system that is built on the colonial model, and even though it's broken, they hold on to it because knowledge is what they want to starve us of. So they can in turn manipulate our lives. They can tell us that cost of living is natural. The increases in cost of living is natural. A cost of living, man, it happens. But on the other hand, when they create a giveaway budget that is built on debt, that spirals inflation and create the vicious cycle of inflation and propels it at a faster pace, we will accept it because as so life go, a cost of living increase.
In fact, they tell us that it's international. The whole world is going through inflation. So we have to go through it too. And of course, if you knew any better, if you were a student of economics, if you understand economics, you'll know that we have chosen to import America's inflation. We chose to do that. America is in the business of exporting inflation. That's their job. They do that to achieve their objectives. Now, if you have a leadership, a government that understands economics, the government can decide we will not import America's inflation. We're going to protect our people. Now, just imagine when Jamaica has water security. because we have a government that invests in having water harvesting catchments throughout the country, properly networked, to ensure that every side of the country, every farmer will have adequate water supply based on our blessings from heaven. We're very blessed with enough water in Jamaica, whether from the heavy rainy season to our underground water. We're blessed. Furthermore, if we invested in desalination plants, the ocean is a vast supply, and Israel have shown us that you can do it, and Singapore has shown us that you can do it. So if we invested in having water security, and then we couple that with food security by making Jamaica the organic food capital of the world, by investing the same way the Netherlands did in massive organic farming using modern technology that will give us greater yields for smaller amount of lands, while using the vast amount of farmlands that we have not been using productively. So we have food security, water security. And then now if we invest in becoming expert at harnessing renewable energy, whether it's biogas or geothermal or hydro or solar, and put that mix together, now Jamaica would have created a solid boundary of resilience economically, water, food, and energy. Then on top of that now, you do make all of Jamaica safe, clean, and orderly, smell, look, and feel like a tourist destination. All 14 parishes, all 228 divisions, all 3 counties, looking good, smelling good, feeling good. And you therefore make Jamaica the mecca for tourism. Not that we're going to be depending on tourism, but that because we have created such a beautiful country, we have taken our natural endowments and make them very pleasant and appealing. And we've built a tourism model that brings the tourism dollar into the community, spent in the community, buying Jamaican-produced entertainment, Jamaican-produced food, Jamaican-produced everything, music, you name it. And plus, what we have done in agriculture, that would be by itself a tourist attraction. People want to come and marvel at our effective use of water or effective growing of organic plants, the quality of the food that we give our people to make our people healthy, and then we're selling that to the world. If we do that, no major economic shocks can cause our people to lose the value of their purchasing power, because we would be a net exporter of value to the rest of the world. What do you say to that, Mr. Wright and Madam Williams?
I listened to you talk about making the entire Jamaica look like a tourist area, and I confess this. When I moved through my very underdeveloped community that has remained the same way, looked the same way my entire life, right? And nothing has changed other than a few buildings, right? The major swaths of land are still owned by descendants of the Plantocracy. There's still one main street that runs through the little town, etc. And I love that place. But when you talk about that and I look around and I start thinking, okay, if we have all the road clear cut by say 5 feet, so the utility lines are there and there's proper street lighting and the roads are properly maintained and the houses are clean and painted and everywhere cut nicely, not because the tourists is coming there, but because we live there, then the tourists will be happy to come and walk around and be amongst us. And of course, when everybody has an opportunity, then there is less crime. I'm not saying that it will be perfect and utopian and there will be no crime, but there will be less. And based on our plan for crime and justice and state security, there'll be better means of investigating, i.e. solving these issues. But I look forward to that. I really do. Because right now, my kids don't play outside much anymore because of that very reason.
And by the way, Winston, just in case somebody might think that this is utopia, we're not talking about utopia, we're talking about good governance. And I always have to remind people, everything I'm saying has already been done by Singapore. So
exactly.
We're not talking about something that cannot be done. All of what I'm saying here in terms of creating, Singapore has nothing. It's a piece of rock. They don't have 10% of the assets that we have. yet still, natural assets I'm talking about, they don't have 10% of the natural assets, yet still they have turned their country in an asset that's more than 1,000 times our country. Using less than using less than 10% of what we have, they have created a value that's 1,000 times more than what we have. With less than what we have, they have 6 million people, and they have less than 0.25% murders per 100,000. We have 46 murders per 100,000. We have less people and more resources, and we have more murders. They have less resources and more people and have less murders. Just think about that. If we ever realize our true potential, which we can't, because our leaders have dwarfed our minds. They have gotten us to accept that Jamaica can never be better. That's why many in the diaspora just turn off, and many at home just lock off from the process. But once we have new leadership with vision, leadership with conviction, leadership that actually wants a Jamaica that works for all Jamaicans, we can realize just as much or even more than Singapore. Mr. Barnett, welcome to the show, sir. Oh, quickly, go ahead, Winston, before Mr. Barnett picks up.
I was going to say, we have to do the math for the people to demonstrate how this would work. Because, again, when we talk, they keep thinking about the dominance of the two colonial parties. That dominance is a lie. It's a myth. It's something that the media spreads. Now, help me with the math, Mr. President. You're an accountant. 2.8, 2.9 million people on island?
Call it 3 million. 3 million.
3 million.
Because the census hasn't been done. Yeah.
63% of that is how much?
63% of the 3 million. Go ahead, Miss Nagika. Tell us what is 63%.
Why would you do that?
Sorry?
63%.
63 or 60%? 60%, right?
63. We take the rough figure.
Okay. Why you want 63% though?
I'll tell you in a sec.
That's like 1.89.
Go ahead, 1.89.
So 1.89 million people abstained from the last ballot, the last general election. Right? Now, from what I remember, just about 500,000 voted for the JLP.
Yeah. I'm going to correct it here quickly.
Yes.
They don't use the 3 million. It's 1.9 roughly that could vote. So 1.9 million could vote, and 63% of that would be 1.2 million.
All right. And out of that, 500,000 give or take voted.
Yes.
Now, you see the disparity?
Yes.
That's not a dominance. And despite all the skewed polls that they have put out to the contrary, there is no dominance there. Now, imagine now if those persons, that 63%, how much it is? 1 point how much?
1.2.
That 1.2 million persons wanted change, decided genuinely that they wanted change and supported the UIC, identified a candidate in their area, worked with a candidate, donated or join or become member and make their $1,000 count. Those three things. UIC would be in power. And all these things that we talk about would come to fruition. That's how simple the math is.
Yes, the math is simple, but the mind is a little bit more complex than that. So the problem is the 63% that didn't vote in the last election, and it's going to be a larger population number now in the next election. They are not hearing the UIC. The majority of them aren't hearing the UIC. It's a powerful trick. Here's how it works. The PSOJ oligarchy, right? Which many Jamaicans didn't know until we started to tell them. The PSOJ oligarchy, remember, every single election, they fund these two parties, okay? With millions of dollars. They also own and control the media. So every day on regular media, the Jamaican people hear the cascas between these two colonial parties. And that cascas controls their mind. Budget debate. Who call who massa? who tell who for shut up. And that's what carries the narrative. Even when they go on social media, where do they go? They go to the Gleaner and they go to the Observer and they follow the Cascas every day. So they're driven by that. Whatever news story, whatever video is coming out from this Cascas. And so that keeps the mind. Now, those who are turned off, even though they still watch it and so on, they have lost hope. They have lost confidence. They don't believe that anything can happen. So they have given up. The powers that be, by controlling the narrative of the media, controlling access to the media for the UIC. We don't have the money to buy a whole heap of ad anywhere, but it's going to be on radio or TV or social media. We don't have a lot of money to do that. But they're controlling those and keeping us away from the people. Even algorithms. For example, because we were talking a lot about giving people the right to make choices about the what do you call that stuff there?
The juice.
The juice.
The job.
Because we have been shadow banned. We lost a lot of ground because they started blocking everything for us. Not the government of Jamaica, you know, but the powers that be outside said, oh, flag the UIC. The UIC is a bad organization because they are telling people about their rights. They're telling people that they should have a right to choose and that they should not be, you know, tricked into this and they should not be forced into this. So because we have taken that position, the whole world is against us. The global authorities is against us. The local authorities is against us. The private sector is against us. The private sector organization. So if the people were able to hear what we're talking about, right now there's 148 persons on my screen here listening in, 150. Somebody said earlier on, if you go over to another person's platform, 5,000 easily. What are they talking about on that platform? They're not talking about this. They might mention stuff around the periphery, but for the most part, it's kind of like a gossip session. Yeah.
Right.
And so our minds have been tuned to want gossip, to want juice. We don't want too much deep analysis and too much seriousness. We want, as somebody says, Carl, mix up things, you know? And so we have to break through that. And so the more people join the UIC, which is happening every day, and donate, is the more we're being able to get up there and get out there. Even getting candidates is difficult. Why? Because candidates, when they join, they'll look for money. Money must be there already. They don't want to get in and do the hard work. They don't want to come and help to raise money. They want to come and money must be there. Money must just be there for them to get flyers, to get transportation, to get refreshments for their volunteers. They must even go look for the volunteers for them. They can't even do that. So people are lazy generally. They're spoiled mentally. They are entitled, and they think that somebody must come and place something in front of them. What do UIC do? The UIC must just get everything done. We must figure it all out, get all the money, and get the things done.
Do you know where that mindset came from?
Of course we know where it comes from, but tell us.
That mindset came from, you are free. And guess what? Here is free education.
Yes.
Here is free healthcare. Here is free food.
Yes.
Here is a free $5,000. Here is free road. Here is free cow. Here is free milk. And the free continues, but it's not really free.
Mm-hmm.
They took your wealth and gave you a stipend and told you that it's free.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And when somebody tries to educate you as to it, they try to silence them, as in the UIC. But it's time we wake up and realize that free is substandard.
Mm-hmm.
Free is a word that has been used to imprison us, make us lazy and accommodating. He who pays the piper calls the tune. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't want anybody to feed me.
Yeah, we don't want a free goat. We don't want a free goat, Damian Crawford. We don't want no free zinc. We don't want no free cement. We don't want no free blocks. What we want is
free
real
chicken.
freedom, or free chicken. We want real freedom and then the empowerment to do what we need to do. But welcome, Garth Barnett. How are you doing? Deputy Chairman for the UIC. Garth Barnett, can you hear us?
Good evening, Mr. Patterson. Good evening, everyone.
Good
Good
evening
evening, Brother
to
Guard.
I am supposed to be talking on or speaking on Constitution.
all right.
Let me just first, yes. So let me just first just give a brief backdrop as to the Jamaican Constitution and what we have today. Uh, in the late 50s, going into the early 60s, when the Caribbean region was pushing forward for one Caribbean, a West India Federation. At the same time, there was a contending issue here in Jamaica as to whether Jamaica should join the West India Federation or Jamaica should go via the route of independence. A referendum was held and the majority voted for Jamaica to become an independent nation. Uh, so when that vote was made in favor for Jamaica to go independent, the two colonial parties, they got together, they went to England, and they brought back to us a constitution which we now have today, which has been in existence since 1962. A constitution is very important in that it tells how a country or a society is ordered. It lays down the fundamental rules that operate within that country boundary.
Bro-
Currently, our constitution, it gives the prime minister a lot of power, and there's no codified law within the constitution which put limit on the powers of the prime minister. Also, we find out that what we have is a fusion of power between the executive, the legislature. Only buffer between the executive, the legislature is the judiciary.
Brother Guard. Brother Guard.
So we have in what sort of constitution we should have, or the people were not given a chance to have a say in that matter.
Hold on a second,
What the UIC,
Barnett. Hold on
um,
1 second. 1 second. Winston has a question
okay,
for you. Go ahead, Mr. Wright.
okay.
I notice whenever the legal pages make reference to the Jamaican Constitution, the word Constitution is in bracket. Can you tell the people why?
Repeat that for me, Winston. Could you up the volume a bit?
Sure, I was saying whenever I go to the law libraries and pull a copy of the Jamaican Constitution, the word Constitution is in open and closed brackets. Can you tell us why?
Okay. The open and closed bracket, what it entails is that what is it is not a real constitution as such.
Okay, so let's go again. Let's go
That is
again.
my understanding of this.
Let's go again. So you're telling the listeners and viewers here that despite what we've been told by the two established parties, the two colonial parties, that the document is not a constitution.
That is my understanding why the open and closed bracket is there.
Okay,
Well,
brother. Go ahead.
just so that we can quickly jump that point. It's a good point. It's called an order in council, but what it is, it's a document which dictates how Jamaica should be governed. So in its truest form, it is a constitution, but it's not a constitution written by the Jamaican people for the Jamaican people. It's a document that came from England, that had the blessings of the two colonial parties, and that document sought to maintain as much as possible what existed before, but now to vest those master-like powers in the hands of an elite group of Jamaicans to continue what I like to call the master-slave economy. So we move from chattel slavery to wage slavery. That's the essence of it, I believe, gentlemen. Correct me if I'm wrong, and then quickly continue, Mr. Barnett. Let us not cause our audience to fall asleep, though, so we have to kind of make sure we get some conversation going. So go ahead, Mr. Barnett.
We will do. What the UIC proposed is a non-partisan constitutional republic where we will have a true republic. There will be a separation between the executive, the legislator, and the judiciary. In our UIC constitution, the executive does not become part of the legislature as is proposed as with this current constitution that we have. Also, the constitution will guarantee the life, liberty, and property of all individuals, regardless of color, race, or political persuasion. So, and also we'll have an elected president, not something which is proposed. And I think it is important that I pause here to note that what happened in 1962, where the two colonial parties got together and they decided and went to England and brought us something that was given to us. It's the same thing that is happening now. The discussion regarding the whole matter of Jamaica becoming a republic, and those two have got together and they have decided what form of republic we should have without the consent of the Jamaican people, or to include the UIC in the discussion that is ongoing regarding a republic. What the UIC proposed is a true republic which will reflect a modern Jamaican society where everyone within Jamaica can earn, they can live, and they can retire in a clean and orderly society. And also,
Thank you very much, Mr. Barnett. Now, you've made some excellent points that we can really talk about briefly here. First of all, you mentioned separation of powers. Now, this is something that some Jamaicans may have heard before, but let's see if we can understand what that means and why separation of power is so very, very important. Winston, do you want to comment on that?
The separation of powers is important. Before I get into that, I see somebody advocating to forget the history lessons and the academics. That is our problem.
It's a distraction. They're here to distract.
That is our problem.
Yes.
A person, a people, a nationality without knowledge of their history is
It's
problem.
a distraction, Winston. He's here. I know that I've seen it now many times on our lives. They send a person over here to create a distraction. So they want us to actually derail from our main conversation to start talking about them, which I no longer pay attention to. But
checks and balances.
Yeah.
Separation of power is important for checks and balances.
Yes.
If you have a leader of the country vested with absolute power, he will do absolutely horrible things. Case in point here, where our leaders had created genocidal acts by arming militias, so to speak, in the 60s and 70s to prowl the streets and kill with impunity, where our leaders openly and knowingly conspire with gang leaders and drug lords without any fear of incrimination or recrimination. So With these kind of absolute power, that sort of thing will happen, and it continues to happen even to this day. The very few times we have gotten a reprieve is when the judiciary grew up here and stood up and said, no, we're checking your power here. So it is absolutely important that there's a governance system that provide multiple checks and balances. Because right now, if the PM, for example, had gotten his way with the current Chief Justice, the judiciary would have fallen in line because he would have been holding something over the Chief Justice's head. And we would not have that checks and balance. So, for example, when the Chief Justice said that you can't lock up young men from impoverished communities that you have created for an indefinite period without any due recourse according to the law, you're wrong. Then we would have young men from flankers and Russia and all these ghetto and garrison communities created by the politician being arrested in the name of crime control and crime prevention without bail, without any recourse to their rights.
Which then destroys their lives. And
Exactly.
if they had a job, they lose the job. If they never hated the police and the government before, now they hate them.
Now they hate
cause
them.
a breakdown in the society. But Winston, I want to be a little bit more academic, like our friend doesn't want us to be. I'm going to be a little bit more academic here. I want our people to understand, in the purest sense, what is checks and balances? What is this separation of power? So right now, in the current system, your prime minister in the current system, he appoints the majority of the Senate. Anybody he wants to appoint, he appoints them there. He can appoint 13 members to the Senate, the majority. The people from his party who win a seat, he decides which of any one of them will get a ministerial position. And he does that on his own. That's his own prerogative. He puts whoever he wants in. Okay? 1 second. So I'm going to let Miss Williams go now because she does have another appointment. Thanks again, Miss Williams, for joining us.
You're welcome.
Yeah, see you on the next live.
Yeah, do enjoy the rest of your lives, guys. And remember to leave your votes or ratings at the end of the video.
Excellent. Thank you. Take care, Madam Treasurer.
Thank you, Naika. Good night.
All right. So I wanted to make sure this academic lesson is clearly taught and understood. So your Prime Minister appoints 13 members of the Senate. Anybody he wants to appoint them there, right? That's his freedom to do. He has no accountability here. Even though they tell you about consulting with Governor General or whatever, he appoints whoever he wants. The same for the opposition leader. The opposition leader can appoint 8 members to the Senate, any friend and company. They both use the Senate as a marketing ground. So if they have a friend, like let's say you have a friend like somebody from one of your corporate backers, let's say Grace Kennedy is a big corporate backer of yours. One of their guys can say, hey, listen, put one of our guys into the Senate, man. And then can just take one of the corporate guys from Grace Kennedy or any of the big companies that back their campaign that with money and put him in the Senate. They can then make that person become visible to you as if they have really done anything, right? They put them in there, and so then you start to see this person. Let's call him Mr. X. Mr. X is now on your TV screen in the Senate. You give him a ministerial position. Remember, he may get elected now, but you put him in the Senate, any one of your friends. He is now in the Senate. Give him a Minister of Education portfolio, for example. And then you start seeing on your screen every day about him, an education minister. And then one day, you can now give him a seat. And him running a one seat because he has now gotten facial recognition and name recognition. And so it's easier now to move him into the parliament, the lower house parliament. So they use the Senate for that purpose, to reward their friends and company. In the House now, those who won on the Prime Minister's side, any one of them him can appoint to a ministerial position. He can give him a position in the Prime Minister's office, a position in health or education or finance, wherever it is, he can give them. Now, what does that mean? It means that all of these legislators, whether it's the Senate or the House, all of them that are from the Prime Minister side that forms the majority, all of them are beholden to him, hoping and praying that he will appoint them to a plump position, which gives them more power, more access to money, and more opportunities for corruption. This now remove the separation of powers between them. So now you have somebody who is making the law and those implementing the law mingled together. So they can't hold each other accountable. But they say, but we have an opposition to do that. We have an opposition party. And by its very nature, by calling it an opposition party, you have just undermined it, because now their job is to just oppose. So maybe you should even pay any attention to them. And this now reduces the effectiveness of the governance model. The UIC's approach now says, let's separate all of them. So senators are elected by the people in their parishes to represent the parish fully. They're there not by the Prime Minister's appointment, they're elected by the St. Catherine Senator, Westmoreland Senator, St. Elizabeth Senator, Hanover, Portland, St. Mary, St. Anne, all of them, St. James. And so now you have 14 men and women who are resolutely focused on protecting the interest of their parish. That's one. But on the House side now, we say, okay, let's make sure that these guys on the House side now, they are truly community representative. Them come from the community, them live in the community, they work in that community, they have business in that community. So they are now representing the community. They are nominated by and elected by the community. They're not coming from a party specifically. They may belong to a party, but the party doesn't have any say in their becoming the candidate. That's totally a local community affair. They decide who may be nominated. And better yet still, we make it a 100% publicly funded system. This means no big money can control them, whether through the party or through private donors. They will be funded equally and only by the public purse, not by getting money, but by getting the same access to newspaper, radio, television, internet, town hall meetings, and debates. Equally, all candidates get that. So you remove money from the equation. So a poor candidate and a rich candidate are equal in terms of spending. So one can't spend more than the other because it is mandated by law that all candidates will be given equal treatment. What this does in summary, it gives now each of those candidates the authority to speak their minds and to vote their conscience without fear of the party or the party leader being able to hold a big stick over their head of being able to make plump appointments or to give them funding through the party or to influence their donors, because we've eliminated that. What are your thoughts on that, Mr. Barnett or Mr. Wright?
Mr. Patterson, what I would say is that there's in no way the executive should be able to influence the legislative process. It should allow those who are elected to make the law to discuss on merit proposals which are put on the floor for discussion. Currently, as it stands, the executive is able to influence the legislative process because it is a part of the legislative process. Something happened the other day that it has missed the entire country. The local government election was postponed, and we have a member of the upper house sitting in being a member of a local council. He is participating in the legislative council, and also he's going to be a part of that delegated laws which have been passed down to that lower body to adhere to those laws. So it is something that has missed us in quite a few years, where the system has sought to bring somebody from the local council into the upper house, while the constitution does not speak to the matter. It is silent whether or not somebody at the council level can sit in the upper house. These are things that should not happen, and nowhere in the world there's a system of governance that I am aware of that we have a local council person sitting in the upper house of parliament making laws and influence the decision that is going to be binding on him when he returns to that local council. So these are things that a UIC government will look at and will seek to address these anomalies which exist within the constitution and within our structure of governance.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett.
But
Mr. Wright?
the separation of power is something that we desperately need. I mean, when you look at how much the government is colloquializing the representation of the people, it is atrocious. But there is, as Brother Gart says, the quote-unquote constitution is silent on it, and the leaders are immoral to it. So they'll continue to do it because it suits their political pandering and their special interest grafting. And I have no faith in them that they'll fix it. What I'm looking for to fix it for the future generation is a clearly articulated UIC plan to change our governance structure. That is simply it. And that is where my investment is, to further the ideals of the UIC, to have that change. Because if it could have been done by them morally, it would have been done over the past, at any point during the past 80 years.
Exactly. Now, and the thing is, and for me, I don't even think that they can't do it. I just know that they don't have a vested interest to do it. They're committed to maintaining the system as it is right now. But I want to bring up a point that we touched on that I want us to end on. We have 4 minutes left. It's the point of a true republic that Mr. Barnett mentioned. Now, the Jamaican people need to understand that we have been tricked. We have been duped. We have been conned over and over again. So in 1838, they conned us when they gave us freedom while retaining our land and not compensating us for our stolen labor, right? So that was the first trick. So in 1838, when they said the Queen of England has announced that we are now free, that was a fake freedom. You cannot tell people that they're free and they have no education, they have no capital, no land, and you have retained the slave wages that you have withheld from them. Yeah? That was 1838. That continued for over 100 years, that fake freedom, from 1838 to 1944, over 100 years, that our people stayed in that fake freedom state, suffering, recognizing that something isn't right. And that's because when they stole our labor and our land, they also stole our intelligence. Because if you have generations of illiterate people, because they kept us illiterate, generations of persons denied the right to learn freely and to have access to information and knowledge to grow, then you have stolen their intelligence. So even though we were cheering and clapping in 1838, not realizing that the freedom that we were being given was a fake one, it was a freedom to choose our master, a freedom to choose which of the masters we're going to work for, not a freedom to really be ourselves and to be productive. Then in 1944, when we were agitating and things were getting tougher because we're beginning to fight back and burning down places and chopping up people, they said, okay, let's give them another fake thing. So in 1944, they gave us a fake democracy by giving us two fake political parties destroying the Marcus Garvey Party and giving us a fake dichotomy and telling us, no, you have a choice. See, you now have the right to vote. So this right to vote, while they still retain our land, they still retain our stolen wages, and we're still, for the most part, unintelligent, not having enough education and awareness to know what is what. And so they gave us a fake democracy with a governor from England in charge, just like the governor general we have today. And we have, well, not just like, but similar. And we have two parties, which is they help. The Plantocracy, the PSOJ back then, helped to put that together and put that in front of us and trick us to let us think that they're there to work on our behalf in our interest. And so come 1944, we're now cheering that we finally have one man, one vote, not realizing it's just one more trick. That went on for 18 years, from 1944 to 1962. And during this 18 years, the powers that be watched carefully to see if we would have bought the lie, if we would have bought the trick. And we bought it hook, line, and sinker. So in 1962 now, they gave us now a fake independence with a white woman from England as our head of state and two fake parties, two colonial parties controlled by the plantocracy or private sector business elite in collusion with the colonial powers still through their various arrangements, such as still printing our money to this day. To this day, Jamaica doesn't print its own money, which means we have no control over inflation in our country. We have no control over the value of our dollar. We have no control over how much Jamaican dollars is printed and produced and pushed into our economy because we don't even print our own money. So again, we have a fake independence and a fake government, which we have, for the most part, bought into and accepted. So we're now living the lie and we've accepted the lie. Now, because the UIC is agitating for a republic and they realize that the lie can't hold much longer, and how the people responded to the so-called royal couple that came and the UIC roused people up to say, no, this is wrong. They now want to realize they can't keep the sham up anymore. So now they're going to offer us to go republic like Barbados tricked their people. They're now going to try to trick us with a fake republic. Now, what is the difference between a fake republic and a real republic, Mr. Wright?
A real republic is one that will protect the individual right to life, liberty, and property equally. There is no special interest, no group, no individual that is singled out for extra protection. There is proper checks and balances between the executive branch and the other branches of government. So that is the simple hallmark of a true republic.
Excellent.
Now, when I look at what is happening, where we're heading, and the recent example that exists in the region, if people want to see what will happen, look at the recent example in the region. Now, there's a chess game being played. If we accept what is given to us as a true republic, okay, I've given you a legacy, a republic, which is a fake republic. And if we don't, see, you weren't ready for independence, you chose to stay. But guess what? The UIC knows what a real republic is and will be teaching you what it is. We'll be showing you what that structure is for you to say, no, I want this in my republic.
Absolutely. Now, Mr. Barnett, did you have a comment on that before we summarize and close for tonight?
I would want to ask one question. When Barbados was going the route of a republic and the Prime Minister was quizzed on the matter, his response was he does not believe in fake symbolism. So the question I would want to ask, why the rush for a republic now? So what is it that is up their sleeve that we the public do not know?
Well, I
That's the
mean,
question I would want.
I know what the rush is. The prime minister is doing a number of things, right? One of them is, I mean, the prime minister's biggest thing is a game, right? It's how can he trick the people and get away with it? How can he hold on to power? You do that by offering a $13,000 minimum wage. You know it's not going to work, but it's not going to work. It's not fixing the real problem, but it's going to cause some people going to give out whatever sweeties he can to create the illusion of somebody who is doing something good for the people of Jamaica. So going Republic is just one more. So he has struck this committee, and they're going to try to see if they can pass this off as Republic. Now, bear in mind that he has history on his side. There are many fake republics in the world. China calls itself a republic. Clearly, China does not respect individual sovereignty. Barbados, Trinidad, Guyana, North Korea. The word republic has been so prostituted and trivialized that most people believe a republic is simply replacing any monarchical head with a president. And so now they say you have a president and that's it. And they've dumbed down people to ask silly questions like, what kind of system do you propose? Is it a presidential system? They try to simplify it like that. That means nothing. Having a president doesn't solve anything. What solves something is the governance model that you have. What is the governance model that you have? What is the role of the president? In the one that the prime minister is proposing, you're going to have a ceremonial president. You're going to have a president that is not elected by the people, a president which comes into being similar to how the governor general comes into being. So it will be a position of little or no consequence, primarily mostly symbolic. So he's going to replace the governor general, which we have now, with a president. Barbados did that. They just changed the name from governor general to president. And the undergirding system, the substantive system, remains the same. So all of the corruption elements remains in place. All of the things that denies you the kind of governance that you need to empower you and protect your rights, those systems will not change in any substantive way. If they change at all, it will be to further empower and enrich the elite. Any changes they make, however, will be predicated on a statement such as these: to make your life better, to help you, to protect you, and they'll make those changes and they won't do any such things. So the UIC makes it very clear. A true republic is one that unequivocally protects your individual sovereignty. That's number one. If it does not clearly, and I'm not talking about having a Bill of Rights where nice words are said over here, and then in the fine prints over here, those rights are negated. Yeah? For example, there are some countries where they tell you, you have all these beautiful rights, and then a line is written, provided we agree, or provided we allow it, or provided we see it okay, or provided we don't have a reason to take them away. So that's the kind of thing. Now, many persons are happy with that because they've been conditioned to think that government is kind of like a god. In the UIC, we make it very clear. The government never, ever has a right to violate your sovereignty. Never. Whether it's war or famine or pandemic or any kind of natural disaster or nothing at all, the government ever has a right to violate your sovereignty. That's the difference. So in a true republic, your sovereignty is always and unequivocally protected by law. And any politician who seeks to overturn that has committed treason and can therefore face the ultimate penalty for seeking to violate your individual rights. Beyond that now, Winston and Mr. Barnett, beyond that now are now the structures to empower you. Structures such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, the economic model. And the economic model itself has to be free market. You cannot be free if you don't have a free market system. So anybody who has the idea that you can be free and not have a free market, not have an economy where you are free to buy and sell whatever you want to whomever you want, that is an adult that can consent. As long as you have taken away any part of that and allow politicians to cherry pick who they're going to give special rights to buy and sell to, the moment you take away that full freedom from the people to choose and give politicians the right to decide who they're going to allow, which gate they're going to open for who and for what industry, the moment you give politicians that power, you have taken away the free market and you have taken away the freedom of the citizens. Mr. Wright, over to you.
Listen, there's very little to say on this topic because we see a lot of departures from convention. A government that tells you that you're free, but they control your market. For example, there are lots of things that Jamaica doesn't produce, but need to produce its way out of debt. But there are import restrictions unless you have a family in government that your product can come through the ports unobstructed. Right? There's a recent, what do you call it, expose that showed a government minister doing just that. So while the country is languishing with food security and other distributors are struggling to import, he's using his connections to get his family products into the market. And that is what people are holding on to. And that is what they will hold on to with their fake republic. The ability to get away with these reproachable acts will be the hallmark where they'll choose to vest power in one man or one group of men and then use that for their personal enrichment. I'm not for that. I want a real republic where my rights is equal to theirs, an independent judiciary where I can challenge their actions. That is what I look forward to. Now, we are heading back to where we were in the 1800s, where the people, quote unquote, peasantry, have been divested by force or fraud of the economic means of their sweat. And I'm looking on and I'm seeing comments from different people. And they need to realize that they're on the verge of being bankrupted as an individual, pauperized and put back on government control because he who pays the piper calls the tune. So when you're being fed, you will be told what to do, where to go, when to go. And the instruments of that control are already here. They are finalizing that with a constitution designed by them, for them, not by you, for you. And that needs to be clear. There are persons in the middle class and the middle income that believe they're immune to these changes. That 44% increase in minimum wage just eroded 44% of your spending power. You do not owe them bakery or a flour mill, but the man who does needs to hire people who just got that increase, and he will be passing it on to you. And if you look at the net effect of that, you realize just how much you are being robbed. But this is all a populist move by a man that power is vested in him on a massive scale. Now, what the UIC proposes is to divest him of that power, put a system in place that gives you the control, that makes you the captain of your destiny, and put a leader in place that responds to your needs, not control you for his personal gain. And I like to tell this story, Mr. President, and I won't be too long.
Mm-hmm.
In the latter part of the pandemic, when the Prime Minister's wealth was being questioned, he did an interview, and with a big smile, he says that he invests heavily in FX. And he would encourage every Jamaican to do that. You're an accountant. So help me understand this. I'm not. I'm just a simple businessman. FX trading is you hedging your bet on different currencies, correct?
Yes.
And if you live in Jamaica and you're FX trading, you're betting that the other people's currency will do better than yours, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So if my prime minister invests heavily in FX trading, he's betting that my Jamaican dollar loses value.
Absolutely.
And therefore, at his gain, he's destroying my currency.
Yeah, and the thing is, he is in a position to destroy your currency. So if your prime minister if he's engaged in forex trading and edging against the Jamaican dollar, remember, he has insider information. Most Jamaicans do not know the volume at any given time of new money being pushed into the economy. He would know that because he and his finance minister knows exactly all the movements. They know what the reserve capacity is. They know what the new borrowing amount is. They know what the planned release of that money into the economy is. So they have insider information. So what the prime minister is doing, if he's involved in FX trading, that is fraud. That is corruption. So it's like somebody in a company. Let's say you have a CEO in a company who goes out into the market and start to sell a large portion of his stock options into the market, converting his stock options and selling it. Let's say that the price for the stock is now at $200 per stock right now. But there is audit results that are about to come out. And the audit results are going to show that the company has a huge loss and a huge liability due to some environmental concerns uncovered by a regulatory body, which has not yet been made public. And he knows that that's going to come out now in the audit report within 3 weeks. And prior to that, he goes and sells a large portion of his stock holding on that insider information, knowing that the stock is going to fall. Now, if he does that, that's considered fraud, insider trading, and he goes to jail if it's proven. Now, worse than that, he's in a position to cause the stock to fluctuate. He can release damaging information that he knows to be false through one of his journalist friends. And then what he does, he sells at the high, gets his journalist friend to put that information out. The stock then falls temporarily. He then buys back the stock at the depressed price because he has insider information. And then the journalist then released new information, said, whoops, sorry, that was a mistake. That's not quite the case. In fact, the opposite is true. They're in a more favorable position, and now the stock goes through the roof, and he has benefited on both ends of the equation. That's the position of the prime minister. Now, worse than that, the prime minister also uses offshore accounts or offshore companies to hold assets in Jamaica in order to avoid Jamaican taxes. Now, of course, what he has done is not illegal because any Jamaican can do it.
Slavery wasn't illegal.
Exactly. Now, but what he has done is very unethical and smack of treason given his role. He has been a lawmaker in Jamaica for all of his adult career. So while you and I, Sir Winston, when we left college or university, we went and worked for a living in industry and build up ourselves there. He went from university straight into politics for the most part, probably a 1-year difference, working part-time or full-time for Mr. Siaga before. Then he has been in politics. He's been a lawmaker all these years. And over these long years of being a lawmaker, he chose to arrange his finances in a way to defend himself against a failing Jamaica, to defend himself against a failing Jamaican dollar, to defend himself against Jamaican high taxes, while being a lawmaker, demonstrating he actually has no confidence in the government of Jamaica, in the economy of Jamaica, and in the direction of Jamaica.
Very telling indeed. Very, very telling. And when you look at this trend that has emerged over the years, where the Panama Papers spill the beans on all these well-to-do persons hiding monies and dodging taxes, and we number among those. Imagine that.
Yes.
Now, for my leader, the leader of my country, to avoid paying taxes while I have to pay NHT, NIS, income tax, and GCT, special consumption tax, ad valorem tax, property tax, and because he's leader of the country, he's not paying any of those things because we provide him with all his means. And even his property tax, he was late on from one report. What are we supposed to think of a man like that? And we hail him as a great leader, as someone that is caring for the country. My taxes are up
By
to
the way,
date.
let's
Taxes are up
be
to date.
clear now. Let's be clear.
Yours are too, right?
Yeah, my property tax is paid. We're not picking on the prime minister, by the way. No, the prime minister is just the latest iteration of a long list of politicians that have benefited at the expense of the Jamaican people. So whether it is from the beginning, the first premier was Norman Manley. Yeah. Prior to him, we had Chief Minister Bustamante. The first Prime Minister was Bustamante. And then after him, you had Sangster and Shearer and Seaga and Manley and Patterson and Golden and Simpson and all of them, right? Right down to Andrew now and the aspirants of Mark Golding and Peter Phillips, all wanting the big chair. But all of them have followed this trajectory, and none of them have ever done what the UIC is doing now. None of them have ever sought to educate the Jamaican people to see the trickery to which they have been subjected. None of them. Have you ever seen any of our former prime ministers to the prime minister today explaining to the Jamaican people what the UIC has explained and then taking steps? Now, we have not been elected to do anything, but they have been elected. In the 1980s, Mr. Seaga had a case where the PNP did not contest the elections. And so he had every single seat in the House of Parliament. The super majority he had. He also had the ability to appoint everybody in the Senate, even if he created some so-called independent ones. He had full control. So if Mr. Seaga wanted to do the things that the UIC is talking about, if the JLP wanted to do the things the UIC is talking about, they had the power to do that because they had the entire government to themselves. If the PNP wanted to do what I'm talking about, they had the longest unbroken chain of being in government, 18 and a half solid years, including some serious supermajorities. And they did not use that opportunity to make the changes the UIC is talking about. If they have never done this over 80 years, who would be foolish enough to think that they're now prepared to do it today? Mr. Barnett, before you go, sir, please say a word or two on the matter.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. I am very excited about some of the provision, or most, if not all of the provisions within the UIC proposed constitution, especially relating to the ownership of property, and the protection of property rights. For too long, a lot of Jamaicans deemed in a very unkind way when they seek to own property or to find proper housing solution by going out and taking up residence on land which is not utilized, and they are called squatters. Within a UIC government and constitution, those rights would have been protected. Individual would have the right to own land, and that is something that is much needed. We know that in the past, both the PMP and the JLP have sought to give away land titles, but that was done in a piecemeal fashion without looking to upgrade infrastructure in places where persons have gone to start their settlement. And I think that is something that the UIC, well, I know that it's something that the UIC is going to be looking at to ensure that proper infrastructure is put in where there's any new housing settlement, and to ensure that there's a clean and orderly society. So I'm pretty excited, and I'm hoping that the Jamaican population who are viewing this live now will continue to support the UIC and in sharing, and with other persons within their community and friends, so that the word will spread, and over time, there are more persons joining on to give us the support that is much needed.
Well, Mr. Barnett is not even to give us the support in this, to support themselves. I mean, I'm very fortunate in that, unlike many Jamaicans, I own land. I own a lot of land, relatively speaking, compared to most people. And I had to work hard and buy that land. But the truth is, I bought back land that already belonged to me.
You're holding land that is already belonging to you.
But not yet. I'm holding. Okay, thank you, Sir Winston. Because here's what I go on now. None of us in Jamaica own any land because we're being forced to pay rent for that land by virtue of property tax. That's number one. Number two, we're being forced to buy back tenancy on that land when the land already belonged to us, because it is land that was stolen. If I steal land from your parents, that land belonged to you. And the government of Jamaica has withheld lands that was stolen from us and is asking us to buy back that land. The UIC is committed to giving back that land to the people. We're going to give you back what belongs to you, free and clear, free of charge. That land must be returned to you. If anybody understand that, if Jamaicans were to ever understand this one plank, this one principle of the UIC, we wouldn't have hands to fill out membership. We wouldn't have go ahead, Mr. Recht.
I need you to do something for me.
Yes.
I need you to explain to the members online tonight what property ownership does for generational wealth creation.
My goodness, that is when you don't own anything, when you don't own land, when you don't own property, right? It means that you're starting from some negative number beyond zero. You're starting from scratch. Now, let's look at this in terms of the white landowners, those who stole our lands and owned it and had it, right? When their children are born into a family that already has property. With property, you are in a position to, for example, you can, if you wanted to, you don't have to do this, but you could borrow money if you wanted to, against your property to build a business, if you wanted to. You have security of tenure. You're not looking now you're not paying rent for years to somebody else before you, instead of building up your own asset to own for yourself. You have security of tenure. You are now in a position to grow from where you are further on. Now, for the average Jamaican who born comes to nothing, a large portion of their working years are spent trying to pay for a piece of property or a home, first renting and then trying to buy if they ever get to that level. So not having property puts you behind tremendously. Now you have nothing to transfer to your children, and your children have nothing to transfer to their children. And so every generation, for the most part, is starting at zero or behind zero and cannot catch up. Those who have the assets from day one, they keep multiplying it. When you have assets initially, every generation is multiplying that asset. Of course, some are foolish enough to lose it. But those who don't lose it and build on what their parents and their grandparents left for them, they're now building on top. You're not starting at zero. So you keep building and building and building and building, and you're getting wealthier. My children, for example, unlike me, when I come, I get nothing. My parents gave me nothing, no assets, for me to build on. I had to go to school, learn, get a job, make good decisions, create wealth, if you will, and use that to purchase and then to build on top of it. Now, my children, on the other hand, they're not starting from zero. I am going to be transferring to them the wealth I created in my own generation. They will build on that, and just imagine if they don't waste it or lose it by carelessness. If they now pass this on to their children, so it's now more than doubled, right? Because if they just double it, let's say they double it, so it's twice as much, and they pass it up to the next child, who now gets double what I have, and they pass it on to the next child, and that each time it's compounding, compound interest, right? Each time it's compounding.
Right.
Beautiful. Go ahead, Winston. I know you have some points to make.
No, I was saying right, because imagine what that means now for a poor mother who needs to send a child to college, for example, a bright child that needs to go to college, and is a landowner and leverages that property properly, gets a credit union loan, a cheap loan against that property, low interest rate, sends that child to school, that child comes out of school, well educated, bright, and as you said, double that asset, buys another piece of property, puts on that, or build a big house on that, rent out one floor and live in one. Right? That is the start of generational wealth. What they have done by making us landholders and not owners, and also pricing us out of the market, and most importantly, holding the best lands for the plantocracy and the elite groups, is make sure that there is a poor working class available for exploitation.
Absolutely.
Simply put. And we need to be clued into that. The UIC land plan solves all of that.
What we have is generational poverty.
Exactly. What UIC will create is generational wealth. And this poverty
Absolutely.
is engineered.
Absolutely. Now, what, even the whole idea of a mortgage, Winston, if you had a properly run economy, you could build your house without a mortgage. You could build your house free and clear. Now, I'm telling you something that I have done myself. With all of the negatives that they have built in society, I was able to build my house without a mortgage. Right? Now, it wasn't easy, but just imagine if they weren't cheating you. For example, when I buy my land, I have to be paying property tax on it, right? Before I build anything, I have to be paying property tax. I have to be working against inflation. So as I get my salary, inflation is eating it away at the same time. Yeah. And if I borrow any money, because I build businesses, if you borrow money, the risk of loss and the high interest rates at times and whatever you have to deal with. So all of these factors are there working against you, viciously working against you. And if you notice in any economy, it's only a small number of persons who break out, who break away. The system is designed to oppress you, and so the majority suffers from that oppression. If the system was not designed to oppress you, for example, in Canada, because they have a more mature economy where more people in Canada are educated than not, while in Jamaica, more people are uneducated than educated. So in Canada, when I went there, I was able to move much faster up the economic ladder because I was aggressive and ambitious and they say I was bright. And so I could progress very fast up the ladder. Here in Jamaica, no matter how bright and ambitious you are, the level of oppression in this country, from the banking difficulties, from needing politicians to give you a bly here and there, to the connection issues, the poor electricity, the poor internet connectivity, the poor roads, the poor job, finding workers, so hard. So they make life here so difficult that only the most well-connected, politically connected, linked with the whole politics and the PSOJ elites, they get whatever little break. I see people in the PNP right now. There are some people in the PNP, some young aspirants over there. They must suffer. There's still in the party going on, but they're suffering because for them party in the power right now. So them can't get the bly what they would get normally if their party was in power. So the moment they're re-elected, the same thing going to go on because they're hungry. The country is designed for those who are politically connected to get ahead. Those who are not politically connected are shoved to the side. And that's why they're afraid of the diaspora, because those of us who go abroad and make something of ourselves and have a few little dollars left to be able to inject into Jamaica and change the system, they're afraid of us, completely afraid of us. And that's why the UIC has been very, very active in telling the diaspora, come and own this movement. The moment the diaspora own the UIC, the moment the local Jamaican here own the UIC, it's the end of the gravy train for these two parties and the beginning of a new era in Jamaica where you don't have to know anybody. You don't have to be connected to any politicians. You don't have to go beg any politicians anything. The gates will be flung open for the poorest of Jamaicans to make something of himself without getting any special treatment from any politician. The entire system is designed to give special help to every Jamaican to overcome. And one of that help is giving you your property rights back. That's one of the key things. Another help is for us to liberate the banking system so you have a right to a bank account and you have access to capital that was only reserved for the rich and powerful. You now have access to build your small business into a medium-sized business and to build your medium-sized business into a large business, because now the system is designed to work for you, to make exporting easier, to make importing of valuable technology and products easier to help you to build your business. You now will have access to an education system for your children that empowers them with the knowledge they need, not to be simply seekers of jobs, but to be innovators, creators, and inventors, people that can move Jamaica beyond the menial way we're living into modern industries, including water harvesting, including organic farming on an industrial scale, including renewable energy on a scale that will reduce our import of foreign oil and increase our own ability to generate cheaper energy for our local productions. That's the kind of Jamaica you want, not the one where some politicians get elected to control you and control your economy. You want a liberated economy One that allows you to reach your maximum potential and not be hindered by politicians.
Now, if that isn't something to look forward to, especially if you're a family person, if you're a patriotic Jamaican, then nothing else is. The fact is that eminent domain laws and other restrictive covenances, they're not new to Jamaica. They've been around since the Plantocracy to do exactly what they do today. Limit who can harvest the economic potential of the country. We need to get away from that. And that is why the UIC says that for us to get anywhere as a people, we firstly need a constitution for the people, by the people, that opens us up to the opportunities of the nation. Paraphrasing, of course.
Yes.
And we need to see that. We need to see that only the connected few benefit and has benefited even as far back as the slavery days. And it continues today because all they did was change the white faces for darker ones.
Mm-hmm.
Now the UIC is truthful about the way forward and open and very transparent. And I support and I believe. So I'm asking the persons here saying, true, big up, heal, yes. Hi, Jonathan Ryder. Wishing you a good night. Like the content. Tell your friends. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, WhatsApp. The person, John, who wanted a debate but didn't want to hear action and not academics, join our WhatsApp group. You'll hear that. But like the content, share the content so we can beef their algorithm that is holding us down. Most importantly, persons will now hear about the UIC and the UIC's plan, because we need to be in everybody's home, on everybody's computer, cell phone, and laptop. Help us spread the word. The UIC vision and mission is for every Jamaican, and this fake republic will destroy us all if everybody's that versed on it. The UIC is coming to defend you once again. And when we do, for the persons who are there talking about protests, I see you in the group, you say protest, but you don't show up for the protest. I'm not talking about you specific, but generally. So let's start here by doing these very simple things that take 5 minutes.
And the best protest,
you have. Go on it.
the best protest that we can do right now, all of us, the best protest. Just imagine if all of us donated $1,000 a month if you're in Jamaica, $250 a week. And just imagine if our friends in the diaspora, all of us, all of you, gave $10, $25 a month. Then you'll see us right across Jamaica. We cannot do it without you. I know there's this idea that once you form a political party, which we have done, then you magically must be able to do everything. You must be able to go into all the communities, go everywhere. All of that takes money. And so if all of us gave a little bit, all of us, right now, there are only about 200 of you who are giving something every month. $25, $50, $10 in US now. Some are giving 1,000 Jamaican dollars, 2,000. But just imagine if we move beyond 200 persons doing what they can to 2,000, to 3,000, to 5,000. In the next election, just like the last one, when the trumpet is sounded, I guarantee you the two major parties will not get less than the 300 million they got the last time. And they will continue to get what they get right now every month from their source, which is the PSOJ oligarchy. But just imagine if all of us decided that we want this change that the UIC is offering and are willing to contribute even 1,000 Jamaican dollars a month, or $10 US a month, 25 US dollars. I mean, I love donors like Keith Romans, for example, and Rosemary King, and Sonia Mignot, and Emma Gordon, John Price, Elsa. Blay. You know, all those persons, Howard
and
Fowler,
more.
and more, who dedicate every month they contribute to this movement so that we can keep the lights on. We can print a few flyers. We just had our annual members congress on Sunday. You were the ones who paid for it. You paid for the platform for us to be able to vote for our candidates from anywhere around the world. You paid for the tent and the plates and everything that was there. You paid for that to happen. If you didn't pay, we couldn't have it. When we go out like we did to Lloydersville and we pack up ourselves in 2 or 3, 4 vehicles and head out there, you paid for the gas. You paid, but you didn't pay for the wear and tear because that's still being felt by the owners of those vehicles. I know you, Mr. Wright, your vehicle got mashed up. So Mr. Wright came to the function, drove his own vehicle, brought about 4 or 5 other people with him from Westmoreland. And yes, we had a wonderful time and we met with the people of Lloydersville, Forest Hill, and we went down to other places. And after he's finished doing that and heading back home now with the people that he brought to the event, him dropping on one of the government's big pothole and tear off the bottom. I think it cost you about what, $400,000 or $200,000, $300,000?
200 and change.
$200,000. Yeah. No, so you didn't pay for that because nobody reimbursed him. I offered to reimburse him and he said, no, it's okay, and I'll deal with it. But I know it was painful. Yes, him deal with it, but that was painful. And I know the pain because I have suffered it too. Others, when Donovan Moore, for example, when he takes his vehicle and he picks up persons and bring them over, go to St. Thomas and drive all the way on the bad road, all the way. Misha and Naika, and Mrs. Patterson, and all the people who went. And I was driving a nice Crown on the road, and I mean, every minute may I fret, what kind of repair bill am I going to be faced with? And then we had the other vehicle there, the one with the town crier on it, and it a bob across, and you're like, oh my gosh, you're praying that it make it through. I remember one time we went up to the hill there in Balaclava to go look for a man that was homeless, and we went and brought him some stuff and to see if we can help out. And we did all of that, and we're leaving, and we're driving out, and the whole of the front end just tear off of the vehicle. My friends, these are the costs. It's not free. What we're doing it, but it's not free. It is costing us. When we went to the Marley Beach there to defend our beaches from being taken over, and Mr. Barnett was there. Him not have the vehicle, but him traveling, figure out, and I was so shocked when we were in a particular location because he had missed our initial point. And he went through all the
that little community was all the way out this way. When I heard that he was there, I was like, wow.
And he made it. That is sacrifice, people. And who paid for him? Nobody didn't pay for him. He paid his own way to get there. And I know him now have no whole heap of money. I'm not gonna tell you about him life, but I know him now have a whole heap of money sit down there to just go and spend. But he does it. So this work that we're doing, people, it's on your behalf. It's for your benefit and ours. We all of us, I could do something better with my time. If we had good governance, I would be busy producing wonderful products and services that you can buy and enjoy. Right now, my wife and I, we produce some of the best honey in the country. Bee Sweet Jamaica, you check it out online, beesweetjamaica.com. And we sell that honey across the world. Now, if I wasn't doing this, I would double my honey production. You understand me?
Yeah, I remember the other day your apiary got a big hit because you were out on the road.
Yes, I lost about 75 boxes because I wasn't here paying attention. That's 75. Let me tell you, each box has about 50,000 bees in it. Okay? Depending on your levels, how many levels you have gone up. Now, I lost 75 of those. each box, if you're selling it on the open market and you break it down from the maximum number of frames and come down to say 10 frames, a box of just 10 frames, one level, between $25,000 and $35,000 for one box. I lost 75 one go because I was busy doing UIC business. I take on my wife and myself and leave our APRI in the hands of incompetent people who sold themselves as competent, and we went and we lost. Now, I'm not the only one. Misha Earl, who is, does our photography, she makes tremendous sacrifice. Babatunde, when he leaves his business and his activities and come, that's a big hit on him. When Miss Rennie, Janet Rennie, leave from Mobay or from St. Thomas, depending on which one she is doing her thing, that's a big hit. When Harper, Mr. Douglas Harper, leave his wife and their business and pack up people in them car and drive them halfway across the country. You understand? Where these people are paying a huge sacrifice to help us. And I know sometimes we think this is just politics. This is not politics. This is about our life, about the future of Jamaica. And we're doing it because we believe, we know that Jamaica can be a better place for our children and our grandchildren. I know some of you have left Jamaica and you give up on it and say, oh, I'm done with that. But there's nowhere like home. Let us secure this piece of rock. Let us make Jamaica the one last free, solid state on the planet. And while they come with all the new rules and laws, digital currency to take away your right to buy and sell, take away your freedom to communicate, censorship, start to force people to take medication that they don't want to take. Let Jamaica be that safe haven that everybody wants to run to. People from Ukraine, Yugoslavia, even America. Let Jamaica be that beacon of hope and freedom that stands as a shining light, as a monument of liberty to the rest of the world. Let us show the world what good governance looks like, what the best system of governance looks like, a non-partisan constitutional republic, not like the dog warfare, tribal warfare that you see in America or in the UK Parliament or what we have now in Jamaica, but a new Jamaica, a Jamaica where we no longer argue about our tribe, but we stand firmly for good governance at each and every level. My friends, I wish you all a good night, and I thank you for joining us, and I look forward to our next time together. Take care until we meet again. All the best.